As you may have heard, the boys are not all right. It might be a man's world, but young men are struggling. The experts say they're struggling for a variety of reasons: how they view themselves, figuring out what it means to be a man in 2025. And there's data to back up these concerns. In education, for example, 6% fewer boys than girls graduate high school at all. 5% more boys than girls struggle with a mental, emotional, behavioral, or developmental issue. And now a new CBS Reports documentary is taking a look at all this. How did it happen? It's called Boys to Men: Why America's Sons Are Struggling. Here's a sneak peek.
Both Stevens and Navarro's mothers say they're immensely proud of their sons, but share similar concerns about the challenges confronting this generation of boys and men.
Society has these stigmas on a man and like the pressures of a man and what a man is.
Stevens' mom, Joanna, struggles with how to encourage her son to succeed, an issue she says she doesn't have with her daughters.
With girls, you need to make sure that they are, strong. It's easy to say, you need to be strong, you need to be independent, you need to, look after yourself and be in control. And with boys, you can't really say that, because if you tell a boy you need to be in control, it just sounds wrong. And both boys and girls are important, because I have a daughter who's an amazing kid, who's successful, who's strong, who's independent. And then I have a son who I also want the same for him.
CBS News correspondent Adam Yamaguchi, whose voice you just heard in that clip, joins us now to talk about this, I think, important documentary. Adam, thank you very much for being here. What struck me in your piece was one of the experts who said there are more people named, I think, Adam, Dave, and Rick, who are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, than there are women. But that's the now. Those people are getting older, and there's a generational shift happening. Women, more opportunities, but at the same time, the younger men struggling like never before.
Good morning, Tony and Adriana. And you really hit the nail on the head here. This is a conversation that has been difficult for many of us to have for some time, because when you look at the highest echelons of power, you do see men occupying the majority of these positions. But as you said, this, some call this a crisis for men and boys, is showing up amongst younger Americans, and it's also showing up amongst the majority of Americans. Again, those people in power, they occupy just a sliver of the population. And what's happening here is that for the last few decades, we as a society have been focused on improving access to education and improving opportunities for women. And that's all a good thing, and that's been incredibly successful. Some of the metrics that you pointed out earlier in the intro, women are outperforming men in grade school. They're outperforming in graduation rates in college have skyrocketed. This was largely the domain of men for many, many years. And it's also showing up in the workplace and at home. People are forging fewer relationships and marriages as a result of this sort of malaise that afflicts men these days.
So Adam, you talked about some of the ways that boys and men might be falling behind. When in your reporting, what's the reason why?
Well, there are a number of reasons. Again, part of that is the messaging, and then the other piece of this, again, a lot of this again starts at school. People are not performing as well in school. That cascades into men are dropping out of the workforce at rates that we haven't seen in quite some time. That has an impact on the ability for men to go out and seek relationships, meaningful relationships and marriages with women. But there's also this phenomena of men sort of disappearing from the home. If men are struggling with what it means to be a man, and traditionally it has been, I am the primary breadwinner, I am the caretaker of my family. And when all of that is sort of called into question, many men are disappearing from the homes. There are fewer men in teaching capacity in schools. So you're seeing a disappearance of these important male role models in people's lives, and you're left with a generation that's not really sure what it means to be a man.
So how does that generation find the answer? There's a religious revival we've done reporting on. There are returns to traditional definitions of family and the role of the man. Some people go that path. Other people go for a more balanced between the two sort of path. What is the journey what is the advice to young men to find their way?
And what's the manosphere?
Yeah,
I never heard that term before, the manosphere.
Right. Well, for many people, that is the answer. As people are searching for meaning and trying to understand where, as a man or a young man, do I fit into this world, the manosphere is this massive ecosystem that exists online, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or on podcasts, you have essentially you have these influencers and experts who are catering to that male audience. This is where young males gravitate to try to figure out what it means to be a man. Do I need to be athletic? Do I need to get jacked? Do I need to be photographed with a bunch of beautiful people in order to attract members of the opposite sex? I mean, it's like this massive, ecosystem, and some might say cauldron, that on some levels, on some extremes, can be quite misogynistic. But manosphere has come to encompass sort of a catch-all term for all things that cater to men these days. That is one, if you want to call it a solution, that's certainly one place people are going to try to seek those answers.
Some would say cauldron. I like how you put that. Adam Yamaguchi, the documentary is eye-opening. I have a son, and it really kind of educated me, so thank you so much. It is called Boys to Men. Great title. Why America's Sons Are Struggling. It premieres tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern on our streaming network, CBS News 24/7.